Let's start with picturing a game. A video game where you walk, drive, and deliver packages to different characters throughout America. The vistas of the American landscape that oddly look more like Scotland than anything on the East Coast are what are going to keep you entertained. You'll occasionally hear music from a small band called Low Roar as you traverse through the terrain. You can fall over water, trip on rocks, lose your balance while running, have all those packages that you're delivering stolen from you. And I could sum up so much of this by calling this game a fetch quest simulator where you have to also take care of a child, as basically just a daycare center. Can you picture it? Does it sound like a good game to you? You're probably typing, nah dog, that sounds like some unk stuff. Now excuse me while I go get some bus and giat while I'm sitting down playing Call of Duty. And that's okay. I think the same thing. Unless you're like Kojima, the little weirdo himself, you're probably thinking this sounds like a bad idea. Because on paper, Death Stranding just should not work. It's a dead-on-arrival experience that doesn't try to appeal to anyone, and if anything, it goes out of its way to take activities that people find mundane in other video games and make them the core focus here. I would almost describe it as the megalopolis of gaming, but not in a bad way. Let me explain that thought. Megalopolis was a passion project made by the Godfather director Francis Ford Coppola. He funded it himself, and nearly everyone thinks it's a pile of garbage. In that pile of garbage, though, there's a unique vision. There's beautiful cinematography. And yeah, if you look at this shot, you would not assume that this is in the same movie that also has this.
So go back to the club, bear it all, and stalk the kind of people that you enjoy.
Fine.
And at its heart, Megalopolis is proud that no film studio would care to ever have its name on the front of the Blu-ray case. Death Stranding, even though it was funded by Sony Interactive, it only exists because of Hideo Kojima. If he wasn't there, this game would have never been funded. In fact, reading what I wrote earlier would probably immediately make any studio throw this pitch into the paper shredder and block whoever brought this idea to Sony. But because it's Hideo Kojima, they funded it, and they gave him a chance. It's not on the same level as Megalopolis in terms of quality, at least in my opinion, but it remains similar in terms of the treatment it would have received from publishers everywhere. It's overly complicated, it over-explains everything, it's constantly interrupting your gameplay loop with tedious obstacles, and the story leaves a ton to be desired. Sounds a lot like my ex-wife, right, Sam? Oh yeah, forgot, sorry. I mean that. Go listen to any story breakdown for Death Stranding and you'll realize that every one of them sound like somebody spouting terminology from a dictionary that's in a language that you don't understand. You'll hear porters, dooms, repatriate, extinction entities, beached things, the beach, Death Stranding, timefall, BBs, and the list just goes on forever. I know what a beach is, but that's about it. This isn't even a jab at anybody who would make a story analysis of Death Stranding. It's more of a jab at the way that Death Stranding presents its story to the player. Honestly, kudos to the people who read Wikipedia upon Wikipedia page to describe everything happening in this indescribable game. A game that makes me lose words on how or what to say when someone asks me about it. And that's more than I can say about these so-called heroes of the world, like teachers, firefighters, bah. The only new thing a teacher taught me was how to lie about my homework. Can you even guess why I didn't do it? It's because I was too busy playing Death Stranding, you dumbass. And at this point in the video, you might just be confused because you might be wondering if I like Death Stranding or if I dislike it. I don't just like Death Stranding. I love it. It's one of my favorite video games ever made. I'm not here, though, to sell you on Death Stranding by talking about the story. I'm here to sell you on something very different about this game. Talking about the themes. What it's taught me as a gamer, the beauty of it, how so many of us have gone from hating Death Stranding to loving it, and what this game has just personally meant to me in my life. Because Death Stranding isn't just a game about a porter with dooms who has to reconnect the country using the Chiral network to stop the extinction entity from causing the last stranding. In fact, you're lucky if you understood any of what I just said. It's a video game about depression, isolation, connection, the exploitation of that connection, defying fate, and it speaks about these broad themes through its protagonist Sam Porter Bridges, who's doomed to a life of loneliness until he's saved through the very connections that he makes throughout the game. This just gave me an unforgettable experience, and it has the privilege of getting the title that very few have. It taught me something new about myself. We're covering a lot of bases in this video, so we're breaking up everything into episodes. Just be prepared for topics about loneliness, depression, 19 pandemic, and even the inevitable fate that we all face at the end of the road. We're starting off on a lighter topic though at first. Sam Porter, will you please take us to our first destination? Episode 1. The Social Network. Wait, actually it's called the Chiral Network. Death Stranding gives you countless little gadgets like generators, zip lines, catapults, and tons of others that make your journeys easier. None of these can be built though unless the nearby traders have been added to the Chiral Network, which is this massive trading partner that allows communication all over the country with traders who are part of the UCA, which stands for the United Cities of America. One nation under Baja Blast. This Chiral Network allows you to build your gadgets and even shows off your knickknacks in other players' worlds, making them just a little bit less enigmatic to explore. It acts as this asynchronous multiplayer where everybody can affect each other's servers without actually being in their worlds. An example of the network can be that it lets me place a bridge in a special spot, and that bridge is going to be used by another player, and then another player, and then another player in their own respective worlds. And if enough people use that bridge I made, or even if enough people like that bridge, because there's also a like system for all your devices as well. If enough people send you likes for your creation, it can become a permanent part of most Death Stranding servers once the people are on the Chiral Network. The Chiral Network in the offline world adds other NPCs' inventions, but in the online world, if you got that PlayStation Plus money, it adds everyone's creations from all across the world. This all solidifies that main message of connection in a literal sense to other real-life players around the world. You may never see them, but that connection is stronger than ever because every action you do could have a positive effect on another player that's thousands of miles away. The Chiral Network does a lot to make a game all about being lonely and makes you feel just a little less lonely, knowing that other people could be helping you reach your goals, whether intentionally or unintentionally, as a byproduct of them helping themselves. I would give everyone all the cargo on my back, but I would never let you all have this BB. Alright, well now you're somebody else's problem, bye. The Chiral Network just keeps on accumulating as you play the game. More and more stuff keeps on popping up. In every environment you visit, you start off on foot. There's no devices to put up by yourself or other players. You can either walk to most of these places, some of which are actually specifically put in spots that you're designed to walk to, like up this mountain right here to reach a trader called the Elder. Or you could just do what I do, which is I Skyrim horse walk my way up the fucking mountain in my janky ass motorcycle. Walking is for please. I'll take twice as long trying to force my car up a mountain. Thank you very much. Hell, man, you're gonna get so used to America that you will be able to walk from point A to point B miles of length without any map or any guidance system because you'll have this whole place memorized by the end of your playthrough, like you're navigating the town you grew up in. In the middle of this huge second map that represents the middle of America, there's this destroyed highway here as its centerpiece. A collapsed, deteriorated highway that can only be repaired by the help of you and the other players that are connected to the Chiral Network together. Oh my god, wait, I know where that is. Is that Utah? Build the highway back up piece by piece by piece, and yeah, there's a lot of pieces to this thing, but there's also a lot of land to cover. Once it's rebuilt, you're gonna find it so satisfying to drive over entire BT areas where you used to get attacked, but now you don't gotta worry about it because the highway is just smooth sailing. Takes you right over the whole area. You'll get through all those mule camps safely now, and you'll have terrain that you could just drive right over without having to fall over it anymore. All of the materials for building the highway come through package delivering or invading mule camps. Mules are kind of like porch pirates. They steal all your stuff, they kind of just run off with it. So you could imagine after doing so much of this delivering packages and invading mule camps for materials for the highway, you're going to get very used to your surroundings. But you'll always be rewarded. It wants you to learn how to walk through these areas. It wants you to learn the vehicles. It wants you to learn how to use most of the gadgets. You're going to be getting used to the terrain. Cool, now here's a vehicle after hours of walking. Now that you've gotten used to driving, you're going to get the piece of shit floating carrier. And then once you collect enough materials, then you'll get that amazing highway. I mean, just watch the footage of me driving on this thing. It's huge. It's massive. I can't believe you agreed to watch that boring ass footage. The highway takes dozens of hours to finish. You're building with people online, but holy shit. It is one of the most satisfying things I've ever done in a game. The best part is knowing it goes through some of the hardest places to navigate through, like the snowy mountains. I can now just drive straight over the mountains after hours of hard work. Thank you to all my fellow porters out there that helped me finish this freaking thing. It was a lot of hard work, and hopefully you benefited off of a lot of the material that I poured into my world as well. Chiral network in the Strand system is just genius to me. The matching with connection as the theme of Death Stranding, where you're reconnecting America, but you're also quite literally connecting with other players online, even though you never see them in the game. You can send them likes, use their gadgets, and you'll never see them. You'll always feel alone when you look at your screen. But you are never alone in Death Stranding. Someone always is there for you. I'm always there for someone else's journey, leaving my digital footprint to help guide them as well. I'm letting them know. We're all in this together, bro. Death Stranding even allows you to yell into the sky, and if you hear anybody call back to you, it means that there's another online player nearby you right now.
Hello? Shut the fuck up!
This mechanic added on is just another example of maybe you'll never see the face of the person you're helping, or whoever helped you. But that doesn't mean you're not doing anything. I'm sure that's how the contained characters in Death Stranding feel as well. Their loneliness comes from the acceptance that they can't go outside because the world is just too dangerous right now, but they can all stay connected via the Chiral network. That sounds awfully similar to something we all dealt with together in 2020. Episode 2, The Umbilical Cord of Collective Trauma. Another thing I really love about Death Stranding is just how it grew on people over time. It started off as like a very polarizing thing to like it. A lot of people hated it, but as people experienced stuff like 19 or just as time went on, it grew on so many gamers. The first thing you see in Death Stranding is a quote from the poem titled Newa by Koba Abe. Nah way, nay way, more like no way, Jose. I ain't reading that communist manifesto crap. I would read you the entire poem, but it's actually really long, and I have the attention span of a BT boss after you walk out of the tar pit, so I'm just gonna read through the quoted part really quickly that they use at the beginning. The rope along with the stick are two of mankind's oldest tools. The stick is to keep the bad away. The rope is used to bring the good towards us. They were our first friends of our own invention. Wherever there were people, there were always the rope and the stick. The rope and the stick is a metaphor for connection. That's pretty easy. We have good connections, we have bad connections, we shoo some people away that we don't want in our lives with the stick, and we pull others closer to us that we want to keep around with the rope. Death Stranding uses its side characters to illustrate some of the deeper layers of the rope and the stick. We feed off these relationships in the same way that an umbilical cord feeds off food it's given. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the umbilical cord is one of the most common pieces of symbolic imagery in Death Stranding. It's representative of the interactions you have with someone, and just like a real life umbilical cord, it's there to feed on the good stuff, the love, kindness, space, intimacy that it's given. But it's there also to feed on the bad stuff as well. Hate, hive minds, vulnerability, indoctrination. I'm just saying, if you spend too much time with assholes on the internet, or if you're spending too much time with assholes in your day-to-day life, don't be surprised if you become an asshole. We feed off the nutrients of our day-to-day relationships, and that fits into the theme of connection. The only way to stop those connections is to move on. It's to sever the umbilical cord. But a lot of what I'm saying fits into this episode with collective trauma and the gimmick, and even with a little bit of Hideo Kojima's story. In fact, actually, the Hideo Kojima part should come first, because chronologically, he was creating Death Stranding way before COVID, and he had a hurricane of events happen to him that led him up to making Death Stranding. He had been talking for years about how he wanted to make a Silent Hill game. He had so much interest in it, so much passion. And that vision he had was partially realized through what is possibly the best announcement ever in video game history, with PT. PT was a game where you descended into hell as you walked through a repeating hallway that got scarier and scarier with every walkthrough. Absolutely terrifying material. You entered a bathroom to a fetus laying in a sink. A woman named Lisa stalked the hallways every now and then, and for the people who were brave enough to replay PT persistently, they would discover the secrets of the game until eventually unraveling the end of it, where it's revealed it's a playable teaser. PT. It's a PT for a new Silent Hill game being led by Hideo Kojima. A demo being used as an announcement for Silent Hills is just an incredible marketing strategy, and this playable teaser won multiple Horror Game of the Year awards, so you could just imagine everyone was hyped up for Silent Hills and thought, damn, if this was the demo, Silent Hills has got to be incredible. Kojima was talking about how the game was going to make you shit your pants, but I don't believe that.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, let's get that off the screen. Can you guys get that, move that please? Yeah, it's kind of terrifying. Yeah, it's a little bit scary. Unfortunately, on April 26, 2015, Silent Hills was canceled due to Kojima and Konami having internal feuds that took place over the production of Metal Gear Solid 5. Kojima had an issue with the direction that Konami was taking, trying to go more into a mobile gaming direction, and he just also had a feeling of overall losing creative control. Silent Hill was tossed into the trash, and even PT would become inaccessible on PS4, so you could never re-download it again. Kojima lost some battles with Konami, and one big sacrifice was Silent Hills, a franchise that for over a decade he had been talking about wanting to contribute to. And man, he just had his baby taken from him by Konami. And in October 2015, this all led to him deciding to leave Konami and continue his own studio called Kojima Productions that was originally created in 2005, but he made it into an independent studio on December 16th, 2015. The nail in the coffin to this whole relationship was the Game of the Year awards in 2015, where Metal Gear Solid 5 won Best Action Adventure Game, and when everyone in the audience expected Kojima to get up there after losing his baby Silent Hills, they were going to cheer him on, because that would be Kojima and his team's time in the spotlight. That is their moment. That whole scene was stolen from them when Kojima was barred from attending the Game of the Year awards by Konami. Their lawyers said that he was not contractually allowed to accept any awards for a game that was owned by Konami, even if he was the creator. So yeah, you can just see the upsetting years for Hideo Kojima. PT, Silent Hills, Metal Gear Solid 5, the Konami breakup, and all those key moments of loss, sacrifice, sadness. This all perfectly aligned with his ideas to create a game about a character like Sam Porter who lost everything, his wife and his child. And the only thing that's going to get him out of the horror of a life he's living is through the connections of love he makes with the others around him. Kojima felt just a little bit like Sam Porter, needing the connections of his team, the developers, his family, and everyone around him to get him through the next big game that he wants to make after losing Silent Hills. Death Stranding released on November 8th, 2019. Critical reception was pretty good, but a noticeable amount of gamers were not falling for the hype anymore. So many gamers hated it until the world shut down in 2020. If you catch me with I'm looking like Lisa. And no, I didn't say put her back up on the screen, dude. I don't want her there. I don't think people really talk about the first couple of months of it as much as they should. We talk about as if it's the flu, which we can argue all the live long day about how dangerous it is until the sun rises. But something we can't argue about is how crazy February 2020 to May 2020 was. None of us knew how bad this sickness could get. We didn't know how safe we were or weren't from it. We only thing we knew were like from 100 years ago, like the Spanish flu, and to imagine it getting to that level of bad was horrifying. Everything was an unknown, and that scared everyone, regardless of political affiliation, belief, whatever. It freaked people out, even if you were scared for family members and not just yourself. We all experienced this feeling of isolation, loss, separation from those we love, and honestly, a lot of the feelings we experienced are probably pretty similar to the characters of Death Stranding as well. Containing themselves into little groups, they're in small homes that are scattered across America because going outside could be too dangerous during the Death Stranding. Our chiral network, our way of connecting while we were forced to separate from each other, was Death Stranding. The thing about problems is that so many of them are unique. Somebody loses their job, somebody lost a family member, somebody gets physically injured. 19 gave us all an event that we each experienced, some way worse than others, and I don't want to take away from that. It was a lot scarier for somebody who was 60 than it was for somebody who was 20. But it was a legitimate fear that we didn't fully understand when it first started, and we all experienced that part together. A collective trauma. And in video games, problems can be very unique as well, but just like what we were all experiencing in real life, all the characters in Kojima's 2019 masterpiece are focused on the same thing. Stay inside. Don't go outside. Help each other, but stay away from the Death Stranding. Stay inside. Don't go outside. Help each other, but stay away from people because COVID. So here we are, playing as a character who's lonely, isolated, but he's going to reconnect all of America and quoting the game, "Make America whole again." Which was an obvious play on the saying, "Make America great again," but rather than defining a word like great that is subjective, and it could even mean going back to a time period we wouldn't want to go back to depending on your political beliefs. But making America whole again has a meaning that is based in a literal connective tissue, not a subjective phrase like great. America being great means something different to everybody. America being whole literally means reconnecting everybody in the reality context of the game itself. We all wanted to be Sam Porter in 2020. We wanted to, in reality, be able to reconnect everyone, see people again, and make the world normal again. I think that story just really struck a chord for people in that time. We were all going through the same struggle in the real world and in Death Stranding. Those micro things that you did every day, like holding open doors for people, or giving someone some extra sauce with their meal as a waiter, making small talk with somebody who was having a bad day. We were told, don't do that. Stay 6 feet apart. Don't engage with others outside. And we knew that was the right thing to do. But Death Stranding gave us a place where you could still do those micro good deeds that we were so used to. Instead of holding the door open for somebody, now we were laying down a bridge for a bunch of people to use. And that helped out many who were still wanting to do those micro good deeds during the quarantine period of COVID. The altruistic relationship of the chiral network reminds me so much of how we all handled COVID. Or I should say, how we would have ideally handled COVID. The big difference between these two things, outside of one obviously being a real-life, is that in the chiral network, you're building to help people traverse the terrains. The other one, you're avoiding people to prevent them from getting sick. That feeling of helping without seeing someone face to face is shared between both Death Stranding and COVID. But I think the appeal of Death Stranding during the pandemic, and why so many people were willing to gravitate towards it, is that even though neither of you can see the other person's face, people loved playing a game where you help people through building connections and liking each other's creations because they were helping people through isolation in the real world. That collective trauma that we were feeding off of, people craved outlets of real connection. It's why games like Among Us did so well. They became huge over COVID, even for people that had never played a video game in their life, because they wanted to be with people. And Death Stranding allowed that feeling with randoms around the world that we couldn't even see. It scratched this itch of altruistic help that you couldn't have in the real world. This was my first experience with Death Stranding. It caught me, it never let go, and once I was done with it, it did a rare thing for me with video games. It made me feel like I did something. I helped people get through the same struggles as me. I reconnected a world that was torn apart by something outside of their control. And I don't think I would have realized that at the time how much that type of story meant to me in those early months of COVID. But oh my god, it meant a lot to me. Episode 3. The Characters of Death Stranding. I feel like if you had to be in the middle of the pandemic to enjoy Death Stranding, then it makes it sound more like a torture device that you become tolerable of since you're in the worst of times. Kind of like a door-to-door salesman job, or people who turn on white noise when they go to sleep. Luckily, I think you can enjoy Death Stranding without a tragedy taking place, unlike the people who feel the need to ruin everyone else's lives when they go to sleep. Alright, everybody, time to talk about the quirky characters of Death Stranding. Yeah. We'll save Sam Porter for last and start with the one who is just the most badass character in the game. Fragile. Fragile is the leader for her company Fragile Express. She used to work with Higgs, the villain, and at one point in time he tricked her into delivering a bomb into a city, killing hundreds of people and dismantling people's trust in the UCA, and it even got Fragile labeled as a murderer. Higgs tried to do the same thing with another city, but Fragile showed up just in time to stop him, and she was given the ultimatum: to teleport away from the area and allow South Knot City to be destroyed by this bomb. Or run through Timefall, which, by the way, Timefall is rain that ages anything that it touches.
A cryptobite a day keeps the timefall away.
Oh, what are you eating? Oh my god! Ew! Run straight through Timefall, and after running through this, the bomb wouldn't destroy the city, but instead you could throw it into a tar pit. Fragile decides to run with the bomb, which explains why her entire body is that of an elderly woman except for her face. It shows us one of the biggest sacrifices in Death Stranding. Fragile's sacrifice, choosing to disfigure herself to save South Knot City, leaves her torn. She did the right thing, but it's a cost that haunts her. She feels bad about regretting it. I love that about her character. She doesn't clearly view what she did as the right thing, even though she knows it is the right thing. Fragile is a lot of things, but a coward is not one of them.
I'm fragile.
That's cool.
But not that fragile.
Are you the girl from Mission Impossible 4? Another character that adds some extra layers to the rope pulling the good closer quote is Mama. Mama, I ain't even gonna try to explain how Mama's backstory goes. You could write a novel, a lot of novels, to explain her BT baby and her living after death and her leaving her sister, and all you gotta know is that there are two twins named Mama and Lockney who were both played by Margaret Qualley. So today's the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And you gotta know that Mama Qualley's character over here shows off how we sometimes have to sever or separate briefly to make our connections to people stronger. Another important thing is that no matter how much you don't understand Mama Qualley's backstory, this scene where she's talking about reuniting with her sister for the first time in so long will always make me feel something, even if I don't fully get every little small detail of the plot line. Mama Qualley, you have my thanks.
I remember being inside the womb. I wasn't alone. I could hear my mother's heartbeat. Hers and Lochna's. We were conjoined twins. One and the same before we were born.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, you can telepathically connect with your sister. Half living baby inside of you. Okay. Wow, you're a Virgo? Oh, yeah. Same. I'm a virgin too. Now, if we really want to talk about memorable, we cannot forget about how there's a part in this game where you have to sit in a room with the director of Drive and Only God Forgives, Nicholas Winding Refn, who's playing a doctor who purposefully kills himself every 20 minutes for 3 minutes at a time, so he can see his own beach. We sit in a room for 3 minutes while this dude is knocked down a chair. Who thinks of this stuff? Hartman isn't a fully living human being anymore, metaphorically. He lost someone close to him, and he constantly talks about how he is a dead man who just studies the beaches now. Hartman unhealthily represents a pull a connection can have to such extremes that when someone dies, we stop living. This would be the guy who made Drive. And this is a negative, because even Hartman finally views this whole quest he's been on as a negative once he realizes the simple fact that is laid out in front of him. He says this at the end of the game: "Countless trips to the beach. Every single day. Each spent searching in vain for my wife and daughter. Such has been my existence. My fate, if you will. After all, if each person's beach is their own, then the worlds each of us inhabit posthumously are also unique. If that's the case, then even death shall not reunite me with my family. That is why I must search beach after beach after beach for any trace or any clue, anything that might lead me back to them. Death is not the end after all, and the past is never dead. Indeed, it's not even the past. I have decided to give up on my quest, for I have come to realize it will change nothing. I must move on with my life, and as a matter of fact, I already have." After this speech, he then speaks about a girl that he met, and some could argue that he might be moving on a bit too quickly, and that could be just as bad as being too attached to someone post their death, but I think that's what is so interesting about Hartman. He tackles a grieving family member who refuses to accept he is still alive, he can still have relationships for the remainder of his life, and he can't even accept that maybe that's what his family would want for him. He just wants to see them. The scene I mentioned earlier where you have to sit in a room for 3 minutes is actually so powerful as a bystander to what this man is doing to himself, because in Hartman's mind, he's on a quest. He's on a mission to get his life back by finding his family. But as a bystander, we see the reality of it. This is a man who's so obsessed, who has lost everything, and he's gonna literally kill himself every 20 minutes to try and reclaim the unclaimable. And it sets in that this is how Hartman spends every day of his life. It's kind of like how in the real world when you see a friend going through a really rough time and maybe they have a very unhealthy habit that they can't shake, and as a bystander it's very obvious, but you know from their perspective, this is just the way things have to be. This is just the way it is.
I saw my wife and my daughter in the procession. Hey! It's me! Where are you going? Wait! Don't leave without me! No! Don't go! Please, don't go!
Dude, you're dead on a table. So not only can Hartman be seen as somebody who's not willing to let go, but also what does separation from the rest of the world do to someone? Because he kind of got to where he is right now through his isolation. Death Stranding even has you meeting tons of NPCs that you do trading with. Most of these NPCs have surface level representations of people who have trust that is low, their vulnerability is high, they're quarantined from the earth, and all they need is someone to prove to them that they care, and they will eventually understand that they don't need to live in separation from the world anymore. They can work with others, and they can make deals with other trading partners, and even make friends with porters like yourself. The random NPCs are never anything crazy, but I love that they always have different personalities, occupations. You never really know who you're going to stumble upon. One day it could be a film director, another day it could be Conan O'Brien in an otter outfit that he'll gift you if you're nice enough to him. There's just so many unique faces from all different walks of life. You know, making America whole again. We're down to the last big three now: Cliff, Higgs, and Sam Porter. Let's start with Higgs, because everything I've been talking about gets thrown into the tar lake with him. He started off as a kid beaten by his father, who told him that the outside world was awful and that he should only fend for himself. Higgs eventually ran off and became a porter just like Sam when he wanted to discover the world. He liked it, he liked helping people, he liked helping the world reconnect, until eventually a porter that he tried to save died. This made Higgs adopt a nihilistic viewpoint of the world. This made an extinction entity attracted to him, because guess what they cause? Extinctions. Her name is Amelie. and she worked with Higgs to try and speed up the process for this upcoming extinction because of the nihilistic thought process of, if everything's gonna die sooner or later, then why not start today?
Everything Higgs said about me is true. I could end it all. Us, mankind. Extinction. That's what I am.
It's okay, Amelie. That's how I get after I'm done watching a Marvel movie. They both agreed to end humanity early after 35 Marvel movies released, and now they're working together. We're going to get more into that later, but Higgs, for all intents and purposes, is just a flipped image of Sam Porter. They both are delivery men, they both had nihilistic viewpoints of humanity. Sam found redemption in his contentment, becoming more of an existentialist as time moved on, whereas Higgs found no reason to find meaning in anything. But more on that later with Sam and his existentialism and optimistic nihilism. Yeah, I can hit you with those big ism words. I got existentialism in my pocket. I got optimistic nihilism. I got abstractionism, abstinism, race, autism. Like all those isms. They mean the exact same thing, by the way. All of them do. Don't bother looking them up. They're big words. But for right now, let's talk about the bad side of the spectrum of nihilism. Higgs is the exploitation of connection, the indoctrination, the vulnerability, the hive mind mentality of the terrorist group he leads. Higgs is the worst of humanity. A fake leader who didn't earn anything. He failed as a porter. He's jealous of Sam constantly for being a beloved porter. Oh, I know where this is in America. That's London. His powers aren't earned, they were just given to him, and all the way down to his mask and eye makeup, which is copying Egyptian god material and Cliff Unger. He's a poser, and that's been pointed out by plenty of people on the internet, but I want to use that fact to show off that even though he is such a sham, there's so many people who follow him. He's a pathetic, lonely loser who's just jealous of how far Sam has gotten with Amelie as a loved one and how much the world praises him as a porter. But sometimes even losers can take power around the world. They can become dictators, CEOs of companies, cult leaders, or just leaders in general. That's who Higgs is. That's who he's meant to be in our reality. Much like how sore losers who are leaders in our reality will parade around and martyr dead figures of the past for their political perspectives or for their agendas, Higgs quite literally does this by taking control over BTs. The vulnerable people who follow him just crave connection. They crave something to help guide them. The craving leads to a toxic connection, a rope pulling you into a relationship that's going to force you to stick to his own agenda. This is what leads to dangerous cults, or even something as simple as hate groups on the internet. That is Higgs. Higgs is the leader of the asshole brigade. And that's just because they're all so lonely and desperate to be accepted by him. Our last two characters to cover are Cliff Bar and Sam Portapotty. Cliff Unger is a military soldier that for years of his life he wished he'd die. He fought in countless battles, not really loving the world. He eventually found out he was going to be a dad, and it terrified him. He couldn't even comprehend the idea of bringing another life into this world because he'd have to stop doing military missions, settle down, and raise a kid, be a father. He'd have to find a reason to keep going. And the final line of dialogue that Cliff says before dying is about being a father, and it's this.
When I found out I was gonna be a father, I was so scared. Scared of what it would mean. I had to be there for you and your mom, no matter what. I couldn't just go off and get myself killed anymore. Couldn't leave you all alone. I couldn't.
Get off of him! Now!
I had it all wrong. All wrong. Being a father didn't make me scared. It made me brave.
Can you not? Goddamn, it was actually really depressing. Another example of a scene that actually gives you an emotional reaction, even if you don't even fully understand the context of it. That's crazy. Cliff Unger never wanted attachment or reasons to continue on this earth, but his wife and kid gave him that. It gave him a purpose. That umbilical cord of a relationship held him to the earth, and he, more than anybody else, is a character that embodies the idea of not moving on more than anyone else. When Cliff dies, he wants to have his son back, his BB back, so much that he can control BTs and doesn't even move on to the afterlife. He's not done on Earth until he says he's done. He wants his child. There's a reason why every BT has an umbilical cord that's attached to the Earth. They aren't done here. They haven't moved on. You fight Cliff multiple times in different war zones that embody his beach and show that being a soldier, never leaving that anger or that PTSD behind, it all continues onto your beach. Oh shit, I didn't know Chicago was in the game. We go from World War I to World War II to Vietnam, and that collective trauma that all soldiers experience through war, that all gets muddled together on Cliff's beach, because he didn't even experience any of those wars, but they're all on his beach. And at the end of his story, he has his time to reconnect with his BB, and it wouldn't be in the way that you would expect, but after that reconnection, he is able to move on to the afterlife. He accepts what just happened, and he moves on. This proves that Cliff is the one who defied death. He defied fate with how attached he was to his child. A man who wanted nothing more than a reason to move on to the afterlife as a soldier. He got to be a father, and he realized he wanted nothing more than to be with his son. In his own words,
What made me brave?
it's brave to confront those fears. He had his child stolen to him when he was so young that he was never going to let anything get in his way of being with his kid, even death itself. Sam Porter Bridges. He can come back to life due to being a repatriate, which is someone who can come back from the dead. Sam started his journey in mental health decline back when his wife got pregnant with his baby. This was probably the peak of his good mental health status for him. She started experiencing horrible visions due to Sam's condition known as dooms, and I would explain what it is, but we're not going into that in this video. All you need to know is that she had fucked up visions and she ends her life because of it. The death in this universe causes what is known as a void out. It's basically just a nuclear explosion. Once again, I'm not going to go in depth about it, but in short, whenever somebody dies in Death Stranding, BTs become attracted to the dead body and it causes a massive explosion. The only way to stop this from happening is from cremating the body. Sam's wife and their baby have a void out. An entire city of people is vaporized because of it. The sole survivor, because he's a repatriate, is Sam. He brings himself back from the dead and finds everybody gone, which can be described as nothing less than just terrifying. My name is Sam. I'm a repatriate porter with dooms and a phasmophobia, and I own a BB. Oh my god, it's so great to meet you, Sam. Yeah, I'm an atheist Libra empath with synthenasia, and I have a capybara in my backyard too. Also growing up, Sam had a condition known as a phasmophobia, where he fears any form of intimacy, even simple handshakes he gets scared of, but this was cured when he got married. The problem is this regressed instantly after the event of losing his wife. Sam, who overcame his fears of intimacy, now is back to being in fear of what could happen if he becomes connected to anyone ever again. He's terrified of the consequences. Sam Porter Bridges is all about loneliness. He was an upset freelance porter that couldn't get over his grief. He gained a very nihilistic viewpoint of humanity, just like Higgs did. But Sam started to realize how much he enjoyed helping people and reconnecting America. It became not just a quest to make others happy, but it became a quest to give his life purpose again after losing his wife and kid. He gained his own meaning, forged his own path, which this idea of making your own path and valuing life more due to how limited it is are key traits in existentialism. Whereas Higgs was making his own path, but then saw a porter die that he couldn't save, and that just reminded him as to why the meaning of life is actually meaningless. It's nothing. Nihilism is not inherently unhealthy, but the mindset of not forging your own individualistic meaning is. You can reject inherent meaning, but to reject your own meaning that you make will lead to nothing but negativity. We're taking the train ride out of the quirky character sections. Woo-wee! You've got all the weirdo names that come with that, with the double entendre meanings like Die Hardman. You get it, because of Die Hard. Fragile, you get it, because she's not that fragile. Hartman, you get it, it's because he stops his heart. Mama, You get it? Because mommy. Cliff. You get it? Because it looks like a Cliff Bar. Higgs. You get it? Fuck, no, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't get it. Stop doing that to me. You're putting me on the spot. Episode 4. The Teacher of Patience. When the game isn't stopping you every 5 feet to explain unnecessary lore, it's very slow, tedious, and the design is fundamentally anti-fun in a lot of ways. I'm not going to bombard you with reasons as to why the game is designed to be tedious. Some things actually baffle me, like how janky the vehicle driving is. Your package's physics when you touch a wall with them and they just fall right off your back. I've had it to where I've hit a street sign and one of my packages go flying off. The way BT segments feel like so nothing, you get caught in them and then you have to run out of them and then you have to run back, grab your cargo, and then run back to where you were going to go in the first place. It perplexes me. So many of the design choices are just frustrating. I can't always justify all of this, but even though I think that the game rewards you for going through this tedium, I also think that Death Stranding is a teacher and a master of patience. Sometimes people can just be really pretentious with these types of videos and they try and find symbolism in literally anything, but in this case, like it is Death Stranding, there's a lot to break down here. Like the lack of a day and night cycle, it's symbolic for how the game developers wanted to go home and see their families and not fucking work that day. Walking being the core gameplay loop, you'd think that the terrain changes or the mountains or the woods or lakes, that would all be where the entertainment comes from because you have to problem solve. No. These are just minor inconveniences that you don't really feel like dealing with, but you kind of have to. None of it ever feels like, oh, I want to tackle the lake. I want to tackle that mountain or anything. When you succumb to one of these obstacles and you fall over, your packages fall, and you end up swimming down a river with all of your packages floating with you down it, you won't find yourself excited or even feeling challenged. You'll find yourself just smashing your controller against a table due to this minor inconvenience. Can we not right now, BB? Same goes with the BT encounters. In Death Stranding, the most entertaining on-paper idea would be avoiding these invisible creatures that stalk areas, and they're tied to the ground with their umbilical cords. It sounds moody, intense, and very horror-driven. Too bad 99% of the time when you run into them, you just drive right through them, or you get caught and then you run out of the area and then you run back to your packages. They're just like everything else in Death Stranding. They're obstacles based in tedium. You don't want to fight the BTs, you don't want to fight the mules, you don't want to deal with the terrain, and that's because the core gameplay loop is just delivering the packages. In other words, the gameplay loop is doing fetch quest, which, hilariously enough, is what everybody disses about other video games. It's almost as if Death Stranding weaponizes what other games view as a weakness. It feels like something that's testing the player as much as humanly possible, like in that cutscene I mentioned earlier, when you're forced to stand in Hartman's room for 3 minutes straight. But you have to find some other meaning in this scene outside of just standing around doing nothing to enjoy it. That's Death Stranding. It's a passionate work of art. But as a bystander, you're just sitting there in awe at how ridiculous some of the choices are. I remember being on the last chapter of Death Stranding when I was 19 years old, and when I hit the credits, it was 4 a.m. in the middle of the night. I stayed up the entire night to finish the game. Me and my friend were in a party together on PlayStation, and I said, oh, finally, bruh, I finished it. It's over. Hey, bro, bro, are you still there? I don't think the game is actually over yet. They gave me this fun little activity where I'm running around on my beach while the credits rolled. Oh, this is so fucking cool. Oh man, this is awesome. But then a minute became 10 minutes. 10 minutes became 20 minutes. And I soon realized that Death Stranding was testing me one last time by playing this entire credit sequence over scenes with super important expository dialogue. It isn't even the actual ending to the game. There's an entire other delivery after the scene. And when those credits hit, you probably still have another hour left of gameplay. What is this fucking garbage, Kojima? Explain yourself. Oh, what was that? That's why words like maddening and mad passion is really the only way to describe whoever made this sequence. I love every second of it. It's not because I think it's great or because I think the story is fantastic. I love that so many moments in Death Stranding have a confidence that what they're doing is better than any other video game out there because they are defying what any other video game is willing to do. Even if you hate every second of it, you can't deny that in every single one of those seconds, there is so much passion put into it. I don't love the testing mentality of Death Stranding all the time, and I'm not going to tell you that if you hate it that you're wrong and you just don't understand the genius of the game. What I want to say is that when the intention of these designs works, it's worth every minute of frustration. Here's a good example to that. If you played Hideo Kojima's last game, Metal Gear Solid 5, you'd remember the Walkman. You get a little radio and you can play songs that you collect throughout your playthrough, and you can jam out whenever you want. You can even distract enemies using the music. Imagine you're me. You love Metal Gear Solid. I got off playing MGS5 and got on Death Stranding and find out I can unlock songs in the game. These beautiful, hypnotic hiking songs from the band Low Roar that entrance you the moment they start playing. Even though naturally the quality of life choice to play music whenever you want should still be there because it was in Metal Gear Solid 5. It isn't, though. This is Death Stranding. And even though it would seem like a simple thing to have that quality of life choice, you unlock the songs in Death Stranding, but you can only play them in your private room and not while you're walking? Like, what the hell? Like, why would you take that from me? Like, you let me play them in my private room, but just not while I'm walking? The whole point of having the music is I want to listen to it while I walk. But the intention with that annoyance, something that initially bothered me, through all of that testing, the patience and the frustration of hearing no music when all I'm thinking about is how somebody decided to actively not let me listen to music when I'm hiking around. The intention of all of that from the developers and the creator is so I can have a moment like this. I can't play the full thing because of copyright, but I'm gonna try and replicate the scene for you. I'm climbing up this mountain. I haven't heard a single song for hours on end. I'm about to leave the east coast of America. The plot has just culminated to this very moment. And slowly, the music cues. This is yet another one of my favorite moments in Death Stranding, and you want to know the only reason why it exists? It's because I can't listen to this type of stuff whenever I want. The music in Death Stranding is special, and it only plays when some seriously emotional shit is happening on my screen. I can't have a happy birthday song every time I go out to eat. That would make me the villain. The music isn't there to show off a moment of relaxation or a moment of entertainment, because if it was, then there would be no point. We could just play the music whenever we want and have that. The music is here to identify a point of introspection, self-reflection of your journey so far and where all the characters are at in the story. Those moments of introspection are few and far between, and they're supposed to be because they're meant to be special. Every time I had to stop Sam Porter, hear the music turn on and continue my story, every time the game forced me to do that, I began to regret being frustrated that this small quality of life choice wasn't carried over from Metal Gear Solid 5. We don't need the music whenever we want. Realizing we can have patience and only listen to the music when the game allows you to is what I needed for strong introspective parts like this. It helps us appreciate the little things and play the game the way it was intended to be played. Appreciating the little things is the whole point of the patience in Death Stranding. Modern games are often so obsessed with instant gratification, giving you XP, new skins, and new weapons every time you do anything. Death Stranding has none of it, and it asks you to look around and find something to appreciate. Getting swept off your feet in the water, losing all your packages, not only makes you want to punch a hole through a wall, but it also makes you very appreciative towards repair sprays and bridges that people put down for you. Anybody who plays Death Stranding knows how much even the smallest rock being put out of place can ruin your day. It can ruin your character, ruin another player's day, and it can also ruin all your packages. All Death Stranding players know that feeling. So when you come out of it, it's this euphoric, celebratory moment where you just take in everything around you and you appreciate all of it. Death Stranding proves itself as a teacher. Sometimes it's not a likable teacher, and it can even be an annoying ass one, but god damn, is it worth it by the end just to see this view or to hear this song. I'm not going to pretend that this type of game design is for everyone. It's not. You can honestly call it pretentious, you can call it boring, but for me, it's refreshing to see this when so many other games are moving in the opposite direction. Episode 5, The Mules. You don't have to love Death Stranding, and in fact, there's a countless number of complaints on the internet that people have with it. Most of the mules who hated this game didn't like it when it released. Whether it's the fan base of Death Stranding being louder, or they're growing, or these people revisited the game and now they decided to like it, it's hard to deny that the hate for Death Stranding dwindled. The game had that Last of Us Part 2 effect where many hated it when it released, but time has only been generous to its existence, to the point where the Steam copies of both Death Stranding and Last of Us Part 2 have very positive reviews or higher. Yeah, it had the Mel Gibson effect, except without the anti-Semitism. Let's yank some of the negative reviews off Steam. V describes it as a delivery boy simulator, where it eventually feels like a part-time job. This review from Fourth stands out to me because he makes a comment about the unnecessary pop-ups, the ugly and continuous menus, and all that. Chris Quarry here. Wait, Christopher McQuarrie? The director of the last 3 Mission Impossible movies? I didn't know he disliked Death Stranding. Thank you, Fragile, for inviting Christopher to chat with us today. Christopher McQuarrie says, I don't think I've hated a game as much as this one. He comments about the celebrity appearances, such as director Guillermo del Toro, who made Hellboy and Shape of Water. He talks about the ads for AMC TV shows that star Norman Reedus, the man who plays Sam Porter Bridges in the game. And I think he's just mad that Tom Cruise wasn't in the game. It's okay. It's okay, Christopher McQuarrie. Maybe next time. The boss says that everything, absolutely everything about Death Stranding is annoying. From the controls, the story, the gameplay, and the endless calls from NPCs explaining stuff that you could have figured out on your own. And then finally, we have the most logical Steam review on Death Stranding from Durpin. It just says, "This is so trash." Why, thank you, Durpin. But what do all these people know, huh? What do all you mules know? Yeah, you don't like something, you're a loser. You don't like a thing I like, you're a loser. I know young people like my son would even like this game. Shut up, Dad. Shut the fuck up, Dad. I don't give a shit about your dumb little video games. I don't care. Leave me alone. Get out of my room before I don't talk to you for the rest of the day.
Well, but I just wanted to know if you play Death Stranding.
Now, no, do talking back. Now you just earned yourself a week, Dad. Way to go. My point in stating these reviews isn't to throw anybody under the bus. This isn't just open season to crap on people, and I actually think Durpin's comment is pretty funny. I like straight to the point, just, this is mid, this is trash comments. I want to give credit to everyone's reviews because I actually agree with 99% of these. There were critics who would agree with these individuals. Giant Bomb called Death Stranding a self-indulgent mess. Steviar said that Death Stranding should be a warning to all studios who give carte blanche to create art. And Game Rant ranted about it by saying that there's no reward for pushing through all the tedium here. I disagree, because even as you push through all of those obstacles, the systems become easier, the chiral network expands, and you get items that make it easier for you to get to all the different parts of the map. You get vehicles, and you get kick-ass moments like this that reward me after being on a perilous journey. I also disagree with the critic who said that this should be a warning to studios, because I'm going to be the first person to dismiss a game for being pretentious. It's why I hate Zack Snyder movies. I do think that Death Stranding is a little bit self-indulgent sometimes. It actually can get so much so to the point to where I actually agree with the Steam user that mentions that the game talks down to you and it over-explains everything. It makes it feel like that the creator or the writers think that you're stupid. It feels like it's just insulting your intelligence. But a lot of the talking down to you here isn't supposed to be insulting or patronizing. It's because Kojima and the developers were trying to insert way too much lore. and way too much world building into the first game of a series. I want to wrap up this quick section by saying that Death Stranding is just interesting because it's one of the only games where nearly every negative about it I would agree with. It's just all of that criticism are a ton of the reasons I find Death Stranding to be so damn charming. Episode 6. One person's trash is another man's package. Let's ignore the shift to mostly positive reviews and let's solely hone in on the negative. Why do I love some of these negative things about it? I'm gonna go through all the negatives from the most egregious for people online to the least bad. The number one comment that everybody said when the game came out, and people still say to this day, is walking simulator. I know there's videos trying to dissect why Death Stranding is not a walking simulator, and there's more to it. I actually want to go in the opposite direction with my opinion. I fully embrace it as a walking simulator. You could say that it's boring because of that, but to me, there's nothing wrong with a game wanting to be a walking simulator if it executes that very well. Sure, Death Stranding's not QWOP, it's not that much of a walking sim, but about 80% of your gameplay is just going to be walking. Why do you expect explosions in a walking simulator? Do you walk to the top of a mountain when hiking and get pissed that Princess Peach isn't up there? You walk up mountains in real life and you're going up doing this treacherous journey, and the only thing you get out of it is a hurt back and the achievement of saying that you don't need video games to make you happy. And for all you gamers out there, that's an actual achievement. That ain't no Xbox achievement. The negative about being a walking sim doesn't bother me because I don't think it's inherently bad. I think Death Stranding's walking is relaxing, it's immersive, it makes me feel good. And sure, there's the occasional annoyance, but overall, it's about experiencing that walking journey, and I pretty much always have fun doing that. The second big no-no is the plot. I'm gonna mention 3 sections of this plot. First one is the complaint, the game makes no sense. Are there things in Death Stranding that make no sense? Yes, absolutely. Do I think that the majority of Death Stranding makes sense? Yes. A lot of the nonsensical scenes I can chalk up to fitting with the themes of the story, or being abstract because the game's plot holes are often about the people who have died and death itself, which is a very abstract topic. The second reason why I can ignore it all is because I really just don't care that much. I play Death Stranding for the feelings I get from it. I don't really play it for the story. I think if somebody's going into this expecting the Mona Lisa of storytelling, yeah, they're probably going to be a little bit disappointed because the thing is jumping down your throat trying to explain everything about itself. The next section of the plot that I want to discuss is the amount of cutscenes there are. There's over 11 hours of them. In fact, the first 3 hours of the game is essentially a small movie because 2 of those first 3 hours is just cutscenes. It's very similar to how people feel about Metal Gear Solid 4. And just like with Metal Gear Solid 4, I would say if you don't like it, skip it. If you like it, watch it. Watch every shower cutscene with the determination of staring at Norman Reedus' ass. I've played the entire game and watched every cutscene to it. I've also played the entire game and skipped every cutscene. The cutscenes and the nonsense of the plot all leads into my biggest issue with the storyline in the third section that we're going to talk about. Why do I give a shit about any of this? Star Wars came out in 1977 with a universe that shattered box office records. I promise I'm gonna come back around to Death Stranding. Stick with me on this, please. There's so much world building in the original Star Wars. You have Mos Eisley, the droids, the Jawas, Jedi mind tricks, but in actuality, you really only need to understand 4 things to get Star Wars. The Force, the Rebellion, the Empire, and the Death Star. You barely even need to know who Darth Vader is in the original movie. A young farmer must learn the ways of an ancient religion known as the Force if he is going to stop the Galactic Empire from using their devastating weapon called the Death Star to wipe out the rebellion. That sentence is just the gist of Star Wars. Now imagine Star Wars in 1977 if Luke Skywalker went outside on Tatooine and he couldn't go find Obi-Wan Kenobi because Timefall started where rain ages people and he had to have a talk with Aunt Beru and Uncle Owen about how that works and explain it to the audience. There's also this devastating event happening on Tatooine and across the universe known as the Death Stranding that they also have to explain. He grabs his droids, but they're not actually just droids or robots, which, everybody knows what those are. They're also BBs, known as bridge babies for short, and they are connected to the beaches that we go to in the afterlife, only it's not actually the afterlife. It's basically a little purgatory area before the afterlife. We go onto our own beaches before being transported into the afterlife. And then he must also stop this extinction entity known as the Death Star with Higgs, who is Darth Vader. Luke Skywalker is also avoiding these things called BTs that are known as beach things that are from the beach I talked about earlier, but they crossed over into the real world during the Death Stranding and now they're stuck here. Oh man. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Does any of this make sense? Why do I give a shit about any of that? Star Wars succeeded from a 2-hour movie that had a lot of world building, but it was all secondary. You didn't really need to get it. The Jawas, the Jedi mind tricks, the name Maz Eisley, you don't really need to remember any of it by the time you leave the theater. You didn't need to retain any of it. Star Wars doesn't over-explain every little bit about its world building. It gradually feeds it to you. It doesn't feel patronizing or insulting. It gives you a little bit, one by one. And eventually, over the course of the Skywalker saga, which we all know is 6 movies, by the way, you fully understand the entire universe in that saga. 6 stories that each have a beginning, middle, and end. You understand the characters, the backstories, the villains, the politics, and how the rebellion overcame the Empire. Death Stranding isn't really nonsensical. It just tries to fit the amount of world building and stuff to explain to you that would work across a 6-movie saga, but into one story. And I'm not saying that Death Stranding should have just a low amount of lore as the original Star Wars. I know that Death Stranding is a lot longer, but they could have held back on a ton of stuff. Maybe save the crypto bytes for a sequel. Maybe save the extinction entity for the next game and just keep Higgs as the main baddie. Maybe save some of these characters like Mama for the second game. Maybe save the backstories for some characters for the sequel. Having all of this and having all this told to you multiple times throughout the storyline is what makes Death Stranding feel pretentious. The obsession with telling you things repeatedly just makes Death Stranding feel like a huge turnoff to some. And that to me shows a guy who doesn't necessarily have a massive ego. He probably has a bit of one, but I don't think he has the super overinflated ego that some people let him out to be. He just wants to see people make the stories they want to tell come true. He shows this in just his behavior towards everyone else's works of art. It's not like he's just like, oh, I'm so good, I'm so amazing, I'm the greatest, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't really do that. He wants to make something unique, and he wants to make his vision come true. And that's honestly what a lot of artists want. But let's talk about what I don't mind about the story, because some of this stuff, it's somebody else's trash, but it's my treasure here. People have insulted the tonal deafness and the goofiness of Death Stranding, how you'll go from being in an intense shootout and now you have to cradle Lou and try and calm him down by rocking him in your hands while he's screaming. Man, Jiminy Cricket, you're really milking this one, aren't you? The silly and the wacky in Death Stranding is just a classic motif for Kojima. I don't get how people hate this so much. If it's not your cup of tea, that's fine, but it's all of his games. My videos are more tonally deaf than a Kojima game. If you're this far in, then you got no excuse. The fourth wall breaks with Sam winking at you or begging you to have him take a shower to get all the dirt off. The PT reference with Lisa standing in the shower. Even the celebrities and the ads fit into this with me. Like, I get why people hate it, but I find it endearing that so many directors, actors, and talk show hosts just love being around Hideo Kojima. The actors, when making Death Stranding, didn't even understand the plot of it, yet they still decided to make it. All these celebrities, all these people, they were going in to get their face scans just to be in the game, just because they love Hideo Kojima, and they know he has some genuinely creative ideas that they want to be a part of. Most of the people didn't even understand what they were making, and yet they put that trust in him because they know he's a creative person. I think it's fun seeing Guillermo del Toro in here, Nicholas Winding Refn, or even Conan O'Brien. I don't think Death Stranding had a budget to pay all these people tons of money, but I almost guarantee that they have a respect for Hideo Kojima that when he requested them, because he loves their work just as much as they love his, they all decided they wanted to be a part of it. Even Death Stranding 2 announced recently that it was going to have the 2 film directors that did Talk to Me and Bring Her Back. I don't think it's just a publicity thing. I think Hideo Kojima just wanted to meet both these guys and put them in the game because he loves their work so much. And even if they don't know the plot to Death Stranding 2, they know Hideo Kojima is not some hack who's just making garbage and trying to get a paycheck. They know he cares, so they want to be in it too. The last couple negatives I'll say that are still special to me. One is that the driving is abysmal at times. You aren't supposed to be able to drive a motorcycle up this rocky hill. The driving really only feels janky when you're braking the vehicle or driving on terrain that you're not even supposed to be on. If you're not on terrain that you're not even supposed to be on with a vehicle, then why not just walk? Do what the game wants you to do. If you continue breaking the driving physics and having a blast like I'm going to be, then I wouldn't be that upset about it. I'd prefer to be able to break the driving physics by flying over rocky hills than have a shitty invisible wall that forces me to get out of my vehicle. You still gotta be kinda patient though throughout the game, even with the vehicles. There's no point where they're gonna give you like an F-150 B-12 bomber to AC-130 tactical nuke entire cities with BB controlling it like Mandalorian and Grogu. This is just not that type of game. I can understand where story haters are coming from, but the people I side with the most in reviews are the ones who crap on the UI. That is the worst part of Death Stranding. The way you can tell how much space is left in your car while you're also grabbing orders from a booth is confusing. The way distributing cargo works can be convoluted. The fact whenever I make a piece of equipment or fabricate some stuff, I have to go back in the menu to click on the remaining things I want to do because it just takes me immediately out of it. Or like if I have to recycle an item to get materials to fabricate something, it requires me to go back over to the main menu, go into the recycle section, do all that, then go back to the fabrication section and pick the equipment that I wanted to do again. It is just menu upon menu upon menu. It's awful. The map is ugly, and it's filled to the brink with icons in the chiral network, and over 90% of these icons mean nothing to you as a player. Why does it show me these? Who's playing Death Stranding and going to their map and going like, man, I gotta find the Appreciators BB thumbs up sign that's on the highway. A UI is good if I don't notice it. We're all going to be honest with each other. Everybody who's played Death Stranding notices the UI because it's confusing. It's a nightmare at one point or another. And noticing stuff can be so difficult because it can be these tiny little icons. It can just be because there's so much shit on your screen. The only positive I really have to say about it is that Death Stranding wears this nightmare fuel of a UI with pride. They really own it. They think this thing is amazing. And it's absolutely abysmal. It's one of the worst UI systems I've used in a modern game. I think it's only appropriate to end off the negative section talking about one of my friends. He's a friend of mine who hated Death Stranding for years. He'd poke fun at me about how much I liked it, and anytime he asked me why it was so good, all I could ever respond with was, well, you just gotta keep doing deliveries. I promise it'll click eventually. Some people may argue that this is the acquired taste argument, when people drink a garbage product over and over until they just can tolerate the taste and they pretend they love it. IPAs. And maybe that's the case with Death Stranding. But that friend of mine who hated the game, Death Stranding is one of his all-time favorites now. It's because he persevered. It clicked with him eventually. It stopped being boring, it just started being a vibe. The thing that he originally thought was boring about the game, the walking constantly, now he realized, well, this is the core gameplay, and I enjoy it because it's relaxing. It's nice to play. All the flaws and all the little obstacles, they kind of just became quirks that were funny at best and slightly annoying at worst. Death Stranding became one of his favorites, and I think that says something about how this enigmatic world can feel so desperately complex, yet it's also so appealing. It's so appealing to even just somebody who's trying to casually walk through it and just catch a vibe. It goes back to something I said earlier about artists. I don't play Death Stranding for the conventional good things in a video game. I don't play it for the good shooting mechanics, or for the fast-paced gameplay, or for being able to experience a beautiful story like The Last of Us or something. I play Death Stranding to watch a man scribble around on a piece of paper and call it art. But damn it, he's scribbling around with so much passion that it's reeling me in. And that's the magic of it. When the art isn't always about making sense, it's about making you feel something. By the way, that friend's name was Josh. Everyone say hi, Josh. Hey, Josh. Episode 7. Death Stranding saved me. From a toxic mindset. The scribbling of a madman really spoke to me on a personal level due to how much I was going through at the time when I first played it. This isn't an exclusive experience to only me. Many people have made video essays on games where the titles always say something like, Dark Souls saved me. And I think it's wonderful if a piece of art can have such an effect on you or get you through like a fork in the road. Death Stranding never saved me in that way, but it did save me from a toxic mindset. This can easily become a pity party, and that's not the goal. I'm gonna avoid bringing up specifics about what I went through when depressed. I'm gonna stick to some broad stroke topics that I went through, like gaining weight, not feeling valued, or the fact that it was in 2020 during the height of it. I also don't want anybody to walk away from this video thinking that I have clinical depression or some social anxiety disorder or GAD or something. I kind of despise when people say I have anxiety or I have depression and they don't clarify if they're referring to a medical diagnosis of clinical depression or GAD or if they're just going through some turbulence in life. I guess I can sum up what I'm saying by pointing out with myself that, like, if I say I had anxiety or depression over finances, gaining weight, those are things that are very reasonable to get anxiety or depression over. They're not diagnoses for long-term problems. There is a big difference between someone with perpetual depression and anxiety versus someone who just says, I have anxiety because of school, work, balancing family and hobbies, and I'm struggling to pay my rent. Like, yeah, motherfucker, of course you got anxiety. Anybody would in that situation. And that does not mean it should be ignored or it shouldn't be treated seriously. But that type of overwhelming stress and sadness is very different from GAD. I'm sorry for anybody who experiences those problems. This video is about feelings of sadness or stress that everybody goes through at one point or another, and I point all this out so we don't undermine those who have major depressive disorder, persistent depressive disorder, or those with GAD, panic disorders, or social anxiety. Those are very different from what I'm talking about here. Now let's continue. Sam has a final speech in Death Stranding to the team that got him where he is. He basically sums up everything I've been saying.
Back when we met at the cave, the only thing I cared about was making it to the next sunrise. Sure as hell didn't care about America or the future. I was living a lie, hung up on past regrets. I was broken. But somewhere along the way, I started changing. I started meeting people that made me think that maybe it wasn't all bad. People that put their faith in tomorrow, and in me. That kept the lights on and waited for hope to arrive.
He's at the end of the road. He's about to visit Amelie, the extinction entity, in hopes of changing her mind for the world to end. He has to visit her beach. Here, Sam points out that all he cared about was himself. He saw no reason to fight for anything selflessly, and then those connections hit. Those relationships to Hartman, to Mama, to Lockney, to Die Hardman, to Fragile, and that is what changed his mind.
I'll talk to her. Maybe she'll listen. But with the shape the world's in, it'll only be delaying the inevitable. Still, if it buys us time to try and build something better, a new lease on life, at least for a little bit, well, I can think of one woman who made the most of a chance like that. Nothing lasts forever, not even the world.
She'll wipe out all of life and start over. Or in this case, nothing would start over. It's called the Last Stranding. It would be the final extinction event. Sam, when he talks about delaying the inevitable, he's talking about fate. A man who lost everything. A man who's willing to accept his own fate. And even he is seeing a reason for people to continue. Existentialism is the belief that with the limited time that we have on Earth, the decay of our existence makes all our relationships and the actions we do matter more. It has to do with valuing the time that you have left on this earth by forging your own path and forging your own meanings. And the meaning in Death Stranding, the meaning of life, is connection. One time I listened to a video that described destiny and fate differently. The video said that destiny is what we can control, where we take ourselves in life, and fate is out of our control. Fate you can't change, but destiny you can. Destiny matters more because fate exists. Don't let fate override what you have control over like Higgs does. He lets fate guide him into wanting to kill everyone and make everybody believe in what he believes, which is nothing. And don't let destiny make you ignore the fate that is in front of all of us. Death. What's predetermined is that we're all going to die. Humanity will not last forever. And I love that Sam acknowledges that with such an ease.
But we gotta keep it going as long as we can, right? Patch the holes, change the parts, all that. So we can say we had a good run, that we lived.
Thought you didn't like having to handle things with care.
Because it was hard enough keeping my own shit together.
The best line that shows off this existentialism is right here.
Fucked if I do, fucked if I don't, right?
Sam Porter is fucked if he sticks around because eventually their extinction will happen. And he's fucked if he's forced to kill Amelie and stay on the beach forever to delay an inevitable extinction. That's what he has to go through to be able to delay the extinction. Delaying it so humanity has more time to be there with each other. Have more moments like he used to have with his wife. More time for Luis, more time for all of his newfound friends. So he has to deliver. For their sake. There's a couple of fake out endings to Death Stranding, because you meet the extinction entity and she tells you that you have the choice to delay the extinction of humanity by killing her or watching the extinction event with her. Either way, your fate is sealed. You can just choose if you're going to delay it or not. Most people in this moment want to shoot Amelie. They want to defy the fate of eventually dying. That's what the hero would do. We're not dying today, we're humans. Bang, bang, block this girl in the face! And I think that idea is what most defines the existentialist perspective of Death Stranding, because you lose if you shoot her. Get fucking owned! It seems like she's testing you here. Testing humanity. The way to win, in quotation marks, in Death Stranding is you have to put away your gun, accept your fate, but choose your destiny by walking up to Amelie and giving her a big old hug. Just hugging her. Even after she just told you you're all gonna die. The only thing you really need to know about Amelie before this is that she brought Sam back to life when he died as a baby. I'm going to try to very quickly break down why this scene is so important for a million different reasons.
That brings us to your first choice. Do nothing. Stay here with me and bear witness to the very end.
Just watch it burn.
Together. With me. Until the last flame winks out. Doesn't sound so bad, does it?
Yeah, I know. I didn't really like Thunderbolts either.
Then there's the second choice. In expanding the network, you brought people and their beaches together, integrating them into a greater whole. You can't stop what's coming. But if you cut me and my beach loose, perhaps you can stop it from spreading. You might just prevent the last stranding. And mankind will live to die another day.
And she talks about it so meaninglessly, and that's because it is to her. They'll just live to die another day, who cares? That's the way Higgs sees everything. Something isn't beautiful if it lasts forever. It's beautiful because of the limited space we inhabit and the small good deeds that we do for each other, like holding open a door, avoiding each other during COVID, building a bridge for a random stranger in Death Stranding, or even something as simple as a hug. Amelie says that everything Sam Porter knows is going to be wiped out by an extinction, and instead of Sam being hurt by that, being offended and lashing out, shooting her in the face because he wants humanity to live on forever, he accepts that fate and says to himself, yeah, you're right. We're all going to die eventually. And that's why it's important for us to be there for each other. This message hit so hard for many people during COVID. After COVID, it still hit hard. If Amelie can realize why humanity should be there for each other to live to die another day, then anybody can. It's all about finding your purpose, Sam found his purpose through this reconnection. Cliff forged his path through defying death and meeting his son in real life. Hartman overcame his sadness and found his purpose through someone new in his life after moving on past his family's death. Every character in Death Stranding, they all managed to find their sense of happiness, find their sense of purpose, and all because of this limited time that was given to us, and because it's been delayed.
It's the bonds between people that brought the world together. And if that is what matters most to you, then I will stay here on this beach. And I will shut myself in and the rest of you out.
Shut yourself in, come on.
Once the last stranding starts, it can't be stopped. I can't go with you. All I can do is try to spare you the worst.
The game even makes a point to remind us of Sam being terrified of intimacy. Lockney tries to give him a hug when he shows up right before his final speech, but he denies her. Yet he gives Amelie a hug to thank her for being alone for so long, delaying the inevitable extinction, thanking her for giving him the life that he could live and meeting all of these amazing people. He is thanking her for even not letting him die that day with his wife and kid. He's so happy that he's realized that living to die another day is okay because it helped him have more time to find his purpose. Her being alone and delaying this extinction allows for more people to find that. This is the first intimate moment Sam has had with a single person since his wife, and it's with an entity that's going to destroy all life on Earth. How meaningful is that? And if none of you are convinced by what I've said, the visual tale of a woman who must suffer being alone forever. She is slowly forgetting why it's worth keeping the world around. She wants the extinction to happen sooner because of this. And in the face of pure negative nihilism that would view everything as meaningless no matter what, she's losing hope because she's been stuck in this isolation for years. And the thing that brings her meaning again is her love of Sam in this moment with him.
Even if it takes tens or hundreds of thousands of years.
Alone?
That's what an EE does.
Helps her accept her place of isolation because Sam going from being scared of hugging to making a choice to hug her. Seeing Sam, that only human she absolutely loved, do that. And now seeing him show that act of kindness to her face, even though she's admitting that she's gonna kill everyone. She receives that act of kindness when all she's known for decades is isolation, the inevitable extinction. This act reminds her of what being human is all about when your time is limited. It's what makes her recognize that having as much time as possible when time is so finite is much more important than cutting it short for everyone. It hit so hard for me in 2020. I was a pizza delivery driver during that time period. I was having a rough time with my finances. I was stressed. I was eating pizza from my job every day, racking up some pounds. I gained 40 pounds during that time of sadness. I'm a very social person, and that isolation during emphasized the feeling that I wasn't worth human connection. What was the point of any of this? This shitty job that I hated. I just wanted out of all of it. Every day when I was playing Death Stranding, I felt like Sam Porter being that freelance delivery driver, just living day after day, making some extra bucks for bills. Death Stranding really helped me realize that we don't choose our fates. I could die tomorrow. I could die when I'm 100. You could die tomorrow. Any one of us could. What am I doing today to be happier before that fate comes? During COVID, this all felt like nothing. But I started to realize that delivering pizzas, I was making someone happy. Some people would say if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else. But it was me.
So I gotta deliver. For their sake.
I get the privilege to meet all these people going through together, drop off pizzas for them, make their night a little bit better, go home and join party chat on PlayStation with my friend, and deliver more packages for people in a fictional universe. It's weird to say because I honestly think parasocial relationships to fictional characters or to people on the internet is strange and often just unhealthy. But in that moment in time, I might have always been confused over the story of Sam Porter, but never had I related more to a delivery driver who felt alone, but through everyone he met, he was able to dig himself out of a terrible mindset. The limited time here allows us to accept the fate in front of us and to control our destiny to be able to achieve some form of happiness and meaning in all of it. That mindset helped me out. We don't have all the time in the world to spend with those around us. And that's existentialism. That's Death Stranding. That resonated so well with the main character who hates being even touched. But the way he ends up saving the entire world is by embracing someone through a hug. It's telling you to reach out and know you don't have to be lonely. Know you don't have to hate people. Nobody hates you, and knowing that all that connection can make you and other people happier. Go outside and reconnect with the world in whatever time you live in. A time of political turmoil, a time of a pandemic, war, peace, depression, anxiety, busy or not busy. Reconnect the world, even if the Death Stranding is staying in your way. Because even if the world is using the stick against everybody to keep them away, keep the bad out, wherever there's people, there's always the stick and the rope. And you're here to use that rope. In the words of Sam Porter.
Now get it done, Sam Porter Bridges.
I don't know the whole story or every minor detail of Death Stranding's lore, but just like the way most artists think, do I believe that Hideo Kojima cares more about me understanding all of Death Stranding or how Death Stranding makes me feel? I know as someone who is an artist, and for most artists, they care way more about how their art made you feel than you understanding every part of it. Reading whole Wikipedia pages, watching 5-hour-long videos, and all that's super impressive, but Death Stranding always makes me, honestly plenty of other people, experience a whirlwind of emotions without any of that. It means something to me. It means something to all of us. Tell me what games helped out you during a tough period in your life. I actually would be curious. I've heard a lot from like the Souls community. I know Dark Souls and all those games like make a lot of people feel something. Talk about games you like. Who knows? Just games that are important to you. If you want to join our Twitch or our Discord, do so down below. Honestly, it's a sweet community. We're still growing. Sometimes we're all antisocial and don't want to talk, but feel free to jump on in and just say stuff. Also on Twitch, I'm always down to have conversations with new people. I'm even thinking that for Death Stranding 2, I might hook it up and try and play the game on stream while on a walking pad. Like, subscribe, dislike if you hated the video, comment down below, and as always, you already know what we do on this channel. We're going to be appreciating every single little piece of art out there. And I will always appreciate you.